The Secret of Blackwood House. In the northern part of the U.S. state of Oregon, there was an old deserted house among the dense forests, which the locals called Blackwood House. This house had been empty for about 70 years. Dozens of scary stories were known about it. Some people said that lights were on in its windows at night. Some claimed that children were crying from inside. And a few people said that anyone who tried to spend a night in this house would never come back the same the next morning. After hearing all these stories, most people considered it just a rumor. But 26-year-old Adam Carter was not such a person. Adam was a YouTuber. He used to make videos of scary and mysterious places across America and upload them to the internet. His channel was growing rapidly, but he knew that if he wanted to reach millions of subscribers, he had to do something that no one had done before. That's when he learned about Blackwood House. 2 weeks later, it was a cold, rainy evening. Adam was driving down a deserted road in his black SUV. He had only a camera, a drone, a power bank, and a few essentials with him. The GPS was losing signal repeatedly. The forest was eerily quiet. No birds. No animals. Just the rustling of the wind. Finally, the house appeared among the trees. A strange chill ran through Adam's body as he looked at the house. The house was much more terrifying than he had expected. Its windows were broken. There were black spots on the walls. And the strangest thing, the old swing in front of the house was slowly swaying. Although the air was almost non-existent there. Adam turned on the camera. "Guys, I'm right here in front of Blackwood House, one of the most haunted places in America. I'll be here alone tonight." He smiled, but his hands were trembling slightly behind the camera. As he entered the house, a strong smell of rot greeted him. The floor was cracked in places. There were strange marks on the walls. The rooms were full of dust. But one thing immediately caught his eye. Among the dust, there were fresh footprints on the floor. Adam stopped. He bent down and began to look at them carefully. They looked like the footsteps of a child. But the problem was that the house had been empty for years. So who were these marks? He consoled himself. Maybe a local boy had been here. But somewhere in the heart, there was a sense of unease. At 8 o'clock at night, Adam set up his equipment in the main hall. He set up several cameras in different rooms. He set up a night vision camera towards the top floor, and one at the basement door. He started recording live. The first 2 hours passed quite normally. Nothing happened. Absolutely nothing. Adam almost started to despair. Then, the sound of something being dragged from the top floor came. Ha ha ha, as if the house was angry with his presence. When he reached the top, he looked at the entire corridor. There was no one there. All the doors were closed, except for one. At the end of the corridor, a door was slowly opening. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Adam shone the flashlight in that direction. The room was completely dark. He moved forward carefully. He reached the door and peered inside. The room was empty, but there was something written on the wall. In red, in big words, "Get out of here." Adam's hair stood on end. This writing had not been there before. He was sure, because he had made a video of the same room a few hours ago. He immediately went down and checked the footage. And what he saw? It froze his blood. The video clearly showed that the room was empty. Then suddenly, for a few seconds, there was a severe interference on the screen. The picture was distorted. And when the picture came back, the writing was there on the wall. But no one had entered the room. No one. The basement door. Adam stared at the laptop screen for several minutes. He couldn't believe his eyes. The video clearly showed that the room was empty at first. Then, after a few seconds of strange interruption, red words appeared on the wall. "Get out of here." No human being was recorded entering or leaving. Adam replayed the footage. Then a third time. Then a fourth time. But the result was the same. His heart was beating faster. For the first time, he felt that perhaps the stories of Blackwood House were not just fiction. But he was not one of those who would go back. He said to himself, "I came here to find out the truth." And with that thought in mind, he continued recording. It was almost 10:30 at night. The rain outside was heavy. The wind was blowing through the trees, making strange whistles. The house was silent. Suddenly, thump! Adam was startled. The sound came from the basement door, the same door he had installed a camera on. Then again, thump. This time the sound was clearer, like someone was knocking on the door from the inside. Adam's throat went dry. He slowly walked over to his laptop and opened the live feed of the basement camera. The door was clearly visible on the screen. For a few moments, everything was fine. Then suddenly, a shadow passed under the bottom of the door. Very quickly, like someone was walking in the other direction. The mouse almost fell out of Adam's hand. He zoomed in on the video, but there was nothing there now. Maybe it's an animal. He consoled himself. But he knew that this answer did not satisfy him. The house had been locked for years. If an animal had been inside, its sounds would have been heard already. But there was an unusual silence throughout the house. At that moment, thump, thump, thump. This time, 3 loud knocks were heard. Adam jumped from his seat. The sound came from very close by. The basement door was now only a few steps away. He gripped the flashlight tightly, turned on the camera, and started moving towards the door. His heart was beating faster with each step. When he reached the door, he stopped. There was complete silence for a few moments. Then, a low voice was heard. Very low, like someone was whispering. Adam put his ear to the door. At first, he didn't understand anything. Then the words began to become clear. Adam. His whole body shuddered. The voice called his name. Adam. The whisper came again, this time more clearly. Adam immediately backed away. He remembered that he had never told anyone his name in this house. He was alone. Completely alone. Then how did the thing inside know his name? After a few seconds, everything suddenly went silent. Adam took a deep breath. He thought he might have been hallucinating. But then the door started to open automatically, with a creak. Cho, cho, cho. Adam stood still. The door slowly opened completely. It was completely dark inside. Such darkness that it seemed to swallow even the light of the flashlight. The basement stairs were going down. The old wooden stairs were blackened by moisture. There was a strange smell in the air, like something was rotting. Adam thought for a moment about going back. But then he thought about his YouTube channel, his views, and his future. He looked at the camera. If you're watching this video, I'm probably going to explore the most terrifying basement in history. He forced a smile and started to descend. First step, chirr. Second step, chirr. Third step, chirr. Every sound echoed unusually in the silence of the house. As soon as he reached the bottom, he realized that the basement was much larger than outside. The walls were made of stone. The ceiling was very low, and rusty chains were hanging here and there. Adam turned the flashlight this way and that. Then suddenly its light stopped on something. It was an old wooden chair. The arms of the chair had iron shackles, like they were used to tie someone up. Adam's heart sank. There were strange markings on the floor in front of the chair, in the form of circles and mysterious symbols. Adam began to record them on the camera. Then he noticed something else. There were old photos on the wall. Many photos, all black and white. And in all of them the same family was visible. A man, a woman, and a girl about 10 years old. The girl's eyes were unusually dark. She was looking straight at the camera in every photo, as if she was still staring at someone today. Adam took a photo. There was something written on the back. Emily Blackwood, 1956. Emily. Perhaps this was the girl the local stories were famous for. Adam tried to read more, but at that moment, he heard footsteps behind him. Tap. Adam froze. Tap. The sound came closer. Tap. Now it seemed as if someone was standing right behind him. He gathered his courage and slowly began to turn. His heart was about to burst out of his chest. The flashlight's light went behind him, but there was no one there. Just an empty basement. Adam breathed a sigh of relief. Perhaps it was an illusion, but when he looked ahead again, the flashlight fell from his hand. Someone was now sitting in the chair. A little girl, long black hair, white old dress, and a face bent down. She hadn't been there a few seconds ago. Adam was absolutely sure of it. His breathing stopped. He couldn't even move. The girl slowly started to raise her head. The hair began to move away from her face. And then, her eyes appeared. completely black, without any white, exactly like in the pictures. "Emily Blackwood," the girl said in a low voice. "You shouldn't have come." Then a strange smile appeared on her lips. And at that moment, all the lights in the basement started blinking at once. Even though there was no electricity, Adam screamed. But the real fear had just begun. Because the next moment, Emily said a sentence that shook his being. "He's awake. He's awake." These words coming out of Emily Blackwood's mouth echoed in the cold air of the basement. Every hair on Adam's body stood on end. His mind kept thinking, "He who?" But before he could ask a question, all the chains in the basement started shaking together. Karrar, karrar. The sound of metal clashing spread throughout the space. Adam backed away in fear. He looked at the chair again. But the chair was empty. Emily had disappeared, as if she had never been there. "No, no," Adam said in a trembling voice. He picked up the flashlight and began to shine light everywhere. There was only darkness in every corner of the basement. But he could feel that someone was watching him, very close. A feeling that signals danger to the natural instinct of man. Suddenly, bang! The basement door slammed shut from above, with such force that the whole house shook. Adam's color faded. He immediately ran to the stairs. He reached the top in a few seconds. He turned the door handle, but the door didn't open. He tried with all his strength. Nothing happened. He tried again. Still no. As if some extraordinary force was holding him on the other side of the door. Then there was silence. A silence that began to hurt his ears. And in the midst of this silence, a voice was heard. Very heavy, very deep, as if coming from inside the earth. "Adam." His blood froze. It wasn't Emily's voice. It was the voice of something else. Something very large and very old. Adam pushed the door open again. This time the door suddenly opened. He lost his balance and fell to the floor. He immediately got up and walked out of the basement. He was out of breath. His heart was beating so fast that his chest hurt. When he reached the main hall, he looked at the door. The basement door was now closed again. Quite silent, as if nothing had happened. But Adam knew something had happened. And the thing had woken up now. It was almost midnight. Adam decided that he would leave here in the morning. These views and subscribers were not more valuable than his life. He quickly started gathering his belongings. But then he remembered. The 2 cameras on the top floor were still recording. He couldn't leave without taking them. He headed back up the stairs. With each step, his heart felt uneasy. As he reached the top, he felt something strange. The house had changed. Or, at least it seemed that way. The corridor seemed longer than before. The walls were darker. And a strange humidity had settled in the air. Adam took down the first camera. Then he headed to the second room. Only then did his eyes fall on the wall. Where before there had been only one message, now there were dozens of sentences. In red, in large letters. "You're late. He's watching you. Run. It's impossible to leave now." Adam's throat went dry. All this could not have been written in a few minutes. And there was no one else in the house. At least that's what it seemed to him. At that moment, a whisper was heard in his ear. Very close. So close that someone had put their mouth to his ear. "Don't turn back." A jolt of electricity ran through Adam's entire body. His hands began to tremble. But human nature is strange. The heart wants to do what it is forbidden to do. He slowly turned his head. And what he saw, he screamed out. At the other end of the corridor stood a tall shadow. At least 8 feet tall. Unusually long arms. And in place of a face, complete darkness. No eyes. No nose. No mouth. Just a black void. He wasn't moving. Just standing there. And staring at Adam. Or maybe he was feeling it. Because he didn't have eyes. For a few seconds, they were both silent. Then suddenly, the shadow took a step forward. Knock. The entire floor shook. Another step. Knock. Third step. Knock. Now he was getting closer. Adam ran with all his might. He ran towards the stairs. Behind him, the sounds of heavy footsteps echoed. Knock. 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 Each step was closer than the last. He reached the bottom. He rushed towards the main door. He turned a handle, but the door didn't open. He exerted all his strength. Nothing happened. The footsteps behind him had stopped. The silence was more terrifying than ever. Adam turned slowly, and his heart nearly stopped. The shadow was now only a few feet away, much larger than before, and now two bright reds had appeared in the darkness of his face, like eyes. Suddenly, those red eyes became even brighter, and a terrifying voice rang out. "You open the door." Adam didn't understand. Which door? Then he remembered. The basement door. The door that had been closed for years, which he had opened, and perhaps freed something else with it. At that moment, the whole house began to shake like an earthquake. The walls began to crumble. The windows began to break. And a scream that was inhuman came from the basement. Emily's voice rang out again, but this time, she was nowhere to be seen. "Run, Adam, before he gets completely free." The next moment, the main door opened automatically. It was pouring rain outside. Adam didn't waste a moment, and the darkness ran towards the forest. But he didn't know that the real fear was no longer inside the house, but had come out with him. Chase in the forest. The rain was pouring down heavily. Adam was running towards the forest with all his might. His shoes were sinking in the mud. Tree branches were hitting his face. But he didn't even feel the pain. There was only one thing on his mind. "I have to get out of here." Blackwood House was now behind him. But even so, he kept feeling like someone was following him. Something that wasn't human. He didn't dare stop. After running for about 10 minutes, he reached a dirt road in the middle of the forest. He breathed a sigh of relief. His car was parked a few hundred meters away. If he had reached there, he might have survived. Maybe. Adam reached the car. He opened the door. He sat inside. And immediately the engine started. The engine made a sound for a moment. Then it was silent. No. He turned the key again. This time the same thing happened. The third time. The fourth time. The fifth time. Nothing. The car was completely dead. At that moment, someone knocked on the car window. Knock. Adam's heart jumped into his throat. He turned immediately, but there was no one outside. Only rain. Then a sound came from the other side. Knock, knock. He looked at the other window. There was no one there either. Then there was a loud bang on the roof of the car. Bang. The whole car shook. Adam screamed in fear. There was silence for a few seconds. Then there was the sound of someone walking on the roof. Tap, tap, tap. Like someone walking on top of a car. Adam's breath caught. He knew that if he looked outside, he would probably see something he would never forget. Then suddenly, everything was silent. Complete silence. Adam slowly raised his head and looked at the windshield of the car. His blood seemed to stop flowing. On the other side of the windshield was a face. Very white, unusually white, long black hair, and completely black eyes. Emily. She stood silently. The rain was running down her body, as if she wasn't even there. Emily placed her hand on the windshield, then slowly wrote a word with her finger. Back. Adam immediately looked at the rearview mirror, and he screamed. There was someone sitting in the back seat. The same long black shadow that he had seen in the house. Two red eyes were burning in the darkness, and he sat completely still, staring at her. Adam opened the door and jumped out of the car. Slipping in the rain, he ran back towards the forest. He no longer cared where he was going. He just wanted to get away from this thing. But after a few minutes, he realized that he had lost his way. The forest had become thicker than before. The same trees everywhere. Darkness everywhere. Silence everywhere. Then he saw a dim light in the distance. It seemed as if there was a house in the middle of the forest. Adam paused for a moment. Then he started moving towards the light, because he had no other way. About 5 minutes later, he arrived there. It was a small wooden cabin. Very old, but the light was on inside. Adam knocked on the door. After a few moments, the door opened. An old man of about 70 stood in front. White beard, deep wrinkles, and a strange seriousness in his eyes. The old man looked at Adam. Then he said, "You come from Blackwood House?" Adam was surprised. "How do you know?" The old man's face turned pale. as if he had heard some bad news. "Come in," he said immediately. Quickly, Adam entered. As soon as the door closed, the old man pulled down the curtains on all the windows. Then he took out a wooden cross-shaped amulet from an old cupboard and placed it on the table. "He's come after you," the old man said in a low voice. Adam's throat went dry. "Who?" The old man was silent for a moment. Then he said, "The one we call the Hollow Man." "The Hollow Man?" The old man shook his head. "He's not a human. He's not even a spirit. He's something much older than that." Adam listened silently. 70 years ago, the Blackwood family tried to summon him. They wanted wealth, power, and eternal life. But they released something that was not of this world. A cold wave ran through Adam's body. Then what happened? The old man's eyes grew more serious in the darkness. The whole family was gone in one night, except for one girl, Emily. The old man shook his head slowly. Emily imprisoned her by giving her life. That's why her spirit is still there today. Adam's heart pounded. "And I?" "Yes." The old man cut him off. "You opened the basement door and weakened that imprisonment." The room fell silent. Then suddenly, a shadow of something appeared outside the window. Very long. Inhuman. The old man's face turned white. "No." The shadow slowly passed in front of the window. And then a terrible voice echoed throughout the cabin. "I've come to get her." Adam's blood froze. Because he knew the Hollow Man had found him. The sign of the Hollow Man. A deathly silence fell inside the cabin. The rain was pouring down outside. But now the sound of the rain was also strange, as if thousands of people were whispering together. Adam and the old man were looking at the window, but the shadow outside had disappeared. "Is he gone?" Adam asked in a trembling voice. The old man immediately shook his head. "No, the Hollow Man never goes. He just waits." Hearing this, Adam's heart beat faster. The old man slowly sat down in the chair. Fear was clearly visible on his face. For the first time, Adam felt that this man was also afraid of this creature. Very much. "My name is Walter," the old man said. "And I'm one of the few people who knows the real story of Blackwood House." Adam listened quietly. Walter took a deep breath. 70 years ago, my father was the sheriff of this area. He was the first to enter this house when the Blackwood family disappeared. What did he see? A strange sadness came into Walter's eyes. He never told the whole truth. But he did say one thing before he died. "What?" Walter said in a low voice. "There was something inside the house that, when you saw it, reached deep into your soul." The temperature in the room suddenly began to drop. Adam felt the hairs on his arms rise. Then, there were 3 loud knocks on the cabin door. Knock, knock, knock. Both remained silent in their places. A few seconds later, there was another knock. This time, louder than before. Knock, knock, knock. Adam's eyes were fixed on the door. Who could it be? Walter didn't answer. The color had completely drained from his face. "Don't open the door," he whispered. Then there was a third knock. But this time, a voice followed the knock. "Walter." Adam was startled. "It's a woman's voice." Walter's hands began to tremble. "No, that can't be." Adam looked at him in surprise. "You know her?" Tears welled up in Walter's eyes. "It's my wife's voice." The cold in the room grew even colder. Adam felt as if his heart had stopped beating for a moment. "But she died 30 years ago." Silence. Then the voice came from outside the door again. "Walter, open the door. I'm back." A wave of fear ran through Adam's body. Walter closed his eyes. "It's the Hollow Man. It deceives people. It makes the voices of the people you want the most." Adam immediately remembered his mother, his brother, his friends. If the Hollow Man could use their voices, he could deceive anyone. Suddenly, there was a loud knock on the door. Bang! The entire cabin shook. A second knock. Bang! The windows began to shake. Third strike. Bang! The door cracked open. Walter immediately stood up. "Time's up," He opened an old wooden box. Inside were old diaries, maps, and a few photos. A rusty key lay between them all. Walter put the key in Adam's hand. "What is this?" "There is another door under the Blackwood house." Adam was surprised. "Another door?" Walter shook his head. "The real prison is there." The basement was only the first part. The real seal is somewhere below that. A cold wave ran through Adam's body. That is, what he had seen so far was only the beginning. Then Walter placed an old photo in front of him. The Blackwood family was standing in the photo. Men, the woman, and Emily. But there was something else in the corner of the picture. A long, black shadow. Exactly the same as Adam had seen. And the scariest thing, the picture was from 1956. But the shadow was clearly present in the picture, as if it had been with them from the beginning. Suddenly Walter's face changed. He started looking at the door. His eyes widened in fear. "Oh God." Adam turned around too. Two red eyes were peering through the crack in the door. And then a terrible voice rang out. "Give me the key." Adam's blood froze. Because he knew the Hollow Man didn't just want to kill him. He was after that key. And if he got his hands on that key, then maybe he would be free forever. At that moment, the door cracked inward. A gust of cold air rushed into the room. And behind the door, he stood, the Hollow Man. His red eyes burned in the darkness. And for the first time, Adam saw his smile. It was not a human smile, but the smile of something that had been imprisoned for centuries. And now it was very close to freedom. The cabin door had broken. The cold wind of the rain was pouring in. And at the door, Hallowman stood. His red eyes looked like burning embers in the darkness. Adam's body froze in fear. He wanted to run. He wanted to scream. But his feet were glued to the ground. Hallowman slowly entered. There was no sound of his footsteps, as if he was not walking, but rather floating above the ground. Walter immediately picked up the cross-shaped amulet on the table and turned it toward Hallowman. A strange scream echoed in the room. Hallowman stepped back for a moment. His red eyes became brighter. "You can't stop me." His heavy voice echoed throughout the cabin. Walter looked at Adam. "Run. Now." Adam was startled. "But you." "Run." Walter screamed with all his might. At that moment, the Hollow Man stretched out his long arm. A black smoke enveloped Walter's body. Walter's scream echoed throughout the room. Adam didn't wait any longer. He left through the back door and ran into the dark forest. The rain was still pouring. The rusty key was tightly clutched in his hand. He knew that if he wanted to live, he had to go back to Blackwood House. That was the only place where this torment could end. About an hour later, Adam stood in front of Blackwood House again. The house looked more terrifying than ever. All the windows were dark, but someone's shadow was visible in a window on the top floor. A little girl, Emily. She slowly raised her hand and pointed towards the inside of the house, as if she was waiting for Adam. Adam took a deep breath. Then he went inside. The house was completely silent. Not like before. This silence felt alive, as if the walls were breathing. The floor was creaking. The shadows seemed to be moving. And somewhere in the distance, the sound of a child crying could be heard. Adam headed straight for the basement. The door was already open. It was completely dark inside. But this time he was in a hurry, more than afraid. He was going down the stairs. Then he stopped in the middle of the basement, where that chair had been before. Now there was something else there. A large circle had formed on the floor, and in the middle was an iron door. A door he had never seen before, as if it had suddenly appeared from the depths of the earth. There were strange symbols on the door, and in the middle was a rusty lock. The key in Adam's hand was exactly like this lock. His heart started beating fast. This was the last seal. This was what Walter had mentioned. Suddenly the basement became colder. Adam looked back. Emily was standing there. White dress, black eyes, and a sad face. This time, she didn't look scary. Rather, she looked like a prisoner. "Hurry up," Emily said, "before he comes." "What will happen if I close this door?" Adam asked. Emily's eyes filled with tears. Then I'll be gone forever. Adam fell silent. What? I'm part of this seal. I bound it to my soul. If the seal is complete, then I'll be gone too. There was a moment of silence. For the first time, Adam realized that Emily wasn't just a ghost. She was an innocent child who had protected the world from a terrible creature for 70 years. At that moment, a loud explosion was heard from above the basement.
Bang.
Then another.
Bang.
Then a third.
Bang.
Emily's face turned white. He's here. The next moment, the entire basement shook. The walls began to crack. Dust began to fall from the ceiling. And two red eyes appeared in the darkness above the stairs.
The Hollow Man.
This time he seemed much larger than before. At least 10 feet tall. His body seemed to be made of black smoke. And his smile had spread across his entire face. Give me the key. His voice echoed. Adam gripped the key tightly. Never. The Hollow Man laughed for the first time. A laugh that shook the entire house. Then you will die with him. And the next moment, he rushed towards Adam with lightning speed. Adam turned the key in the lock with all his strength.
Click.
The door opened. And what was inside? Adam's face turned pale at the sight of it, because under the door, there was a dark, endless abyss. And within that abyss, thousands of whispers were echoing. But the scariest thing was that something was coming back up from within the abyss. Something that was perhaps even more dangerous than the Hollow Man. The door that opened in the basement floor was not like any ordinary pit or tunnel. It was a bottomless chasm, a depth with no end in sight. It was pitch black inside. But even in that darkness, something was moving. Something alive. Something very old. Thousands of whispers echoed together. Sometimes the voices of children. Sometimes the voices of old people. Sometimes the screams of women. Sometimes words that didn't seem to be part of any human language. Adam's head began to hurt. He felt as if the voices were penetrating his brain. Don't listen, Emily screamed. Don't look at them. But it was too late. Two large golden eyes appeared from within the chasm. They were many times more terrifying than the red eyes of the Hollow Man. And then, the thing slowly started to rise. The Hollow Man retreated for the first time. Adam looked at it in surprise. The creature that the entire area feared. It was afraid of itself. No. For the first time, there was fear in the Hollow Man's voice. This can't be. Emily looked at Adam. I couldn't tell you everything. What? The Hollow Man is not the real evil. Adam's heart nearly stopped. What do you mean? Emily looked at the abyss. Her dark eyes held sadness and fear together. The Hollow Man is just a gatekeeper. The real thing is behind him. The entire basement shook. A huge hand reached out from inside the abyss. Not black, but gray as ash, and unusually long. His nails were as big as swords. The Hollow Man took a few more steps back. Shut it back up. He screamed for the first time.
Now.
Adam was shocked. This was the same creature that had come to kill him moments before. And now she was asking for help herself. Emily took a deep breath. Do you understand now? The Hollow Man is evil. But he's afraid of this thing too. A whole arm had now emerged from the abyss. Then another. Then a head. Seeing the creature's face made Adam's soul tremble. There were no eyes on its face. No nose. Just a huge black mouth. That kept opening. And inside that mouth, thousands of human faces were screaming. Adam screamed. What is this? Emily lowered her eyes. It cannot be named. The Blackwood family tried to call it, but it could only bring the Hollow Man. The true being has never fully entered this world. Suddenly, the creatures had came completely out of the abyss. The entire basement began to feel small for it. The walls began to crumble. The ceiling cracked. Emily screamed. Now, seal it. Adam immediately rushed towards the door. But there was a problem. He had to turn the key again to close the door. And to reach the door, he had to get close to the creature. Hollow Man looked at Adam for the first time. I can stop it. Adam was surprised. Why? Hatred flashed in the red eyes of the Hollow Man. Because if he were free, then this world would end too. Hearing this, Adam's blood ran dry. The next moment, the hollow man pounced on the creature. The entire basement shook with the explosion. The two beings collided. A storm of black and gray energies arose. The walls began to collapse. The floor began to crack. Emily grabbed Adam's hand. "Hurry up." Adam ran. Everything around him was being destroyed, but he couldn't stop. He reached the door. The key was still in the lock. He began to turn it with all his strength, but at that moment, someone grabbed his arm. Adam turned around, and his heart nearly stopped. It was Walter, but he wasn't Walter. His eyes were completely black. His face was distorted, as if something else had taken over his body. "It's too late," he smiled. "He's coming." Adam freed himself with all his strength and turned the key one last time.
Click.
The door began to close. The abyss shook. The creature screamed so hard that blood came out of Adam's ears. But as the door began to close, Emily suddenly stopped. Adam looked at her in surprise. What happened? Tears welled up in Emily's eyes. "If the door closes completely, then I have to go with her." Silence. Adam's heart ached. For 70 years, this girl had been imprisoned to save the world. And now that freedom was near, it would have to end forever. Emily smiled for the first time and looked at Adam. "Thank you. You did what no one else could." The door slowly began to close. The creature's screams grew louder. The hollow man was also being dragged into the darkness. And at that very moment, Emily told a secret that silenced Adam. "Adam, you didn't come here by chance. The last living member of the Blackwood family, you are yourself." The entire basement was shaking. The walls were falling. The roof was collapsing. And the horrible creature trapped inside the pit was screaming for freedom. But only one sentence was ringing in Adam's ears. "The last living member of the Blackwood family is you." Adam stood still. This is impossible." Emily looked at him silently. "I knew you would come one day. I've been waiting for you for 70 years. But I'm from the Carter family." Emily shook her head.
No.
"Carter was just a name. The truth was hidden from you." The door began to close further. Horrible screams rose from inside the pit. But Emily kept talking. "When the Blackwood family was destroyed, my parents sent their newborn son away from here. His identity was changed. His descendants took on the name Carter." Adam's hands began to tremble. "And that child?" Emily's eyes filled with tears. "Your great-grandfather was." Adam felt as if the ground beneath his feet had given way. That was why he had always been drawn to this place. That was why he had decided to make this video. That was why he had decided to come here as soon as he heard about Blackwood House. It was not all coincidence. It was all fate. Suddenly, the shadow that had occupied Walter's body rushed towards him again. "Don't let the door close." His voice was no longer human. Adam pulled the door chain with all his strength. CHRRRRR. The door began to close further. The creature inside the abyss began to scream like a madman. Its giant hand came out and headed straight for Adam. The hollow man attacked one last time. He crashed into the creature in the form of black smoke. The entire basement was engulfed in a storm of light and darkness. Emily looked at Adam.
Now.
Adam gave a final push.
Bang. The door closed.
At that moment, the entire house shook. The abyss disappeared. The whispers stopped. The screams died down. And then, complete silence. No sound was heard for several seconds. Then the ground slowly began to settle. Adam caught his breath. He looked around. The shadow that had occupied Walter's body had disappeared. The hollow man was gone. And there was no sign of the ditch. Everything was over.
Or, at least it seemed that way.
Then Adam remembered. Emily. He turned around immediately. Emily was standing a few steps away. But now her body was beginning to become transparent, as if the fog was slowly dissolving into the air. "No." Adam's voice was filled. Emily smiled. It was the first time her smile didn't sound scary. It was the smile of a normal 10-year-old girl. "It's all over now. You're free. And you." There was a moment of silence. Then Emily looked up at the sky. 70 years is a long time, Adam. I need to rest now. Adam's eyes watered. Thank you. Emily smiled softly.
No.
Thank you. And the next moment, she began to turn into particles of light. Slowly, silently, until finally, she disappeared completely. Only Adam was left alone in the basement. 3 months later, Adam's video was uploaded to the internet. But the strange thing was that most of the video had been corrupted. No one saw the hollow man. No one saw the moat. No one saw Emily. People thought Adam had made a good horror documentary. But only he knew the truth. Time began to pass. Adam continued his channel. But he never went to Blackwood House again. Because he knew, some doors, once closed, are better not opened again. A year later, one night, Adam was sitting in his apartment looking through old files. That's when he found a corrupted video file on his computer. He had never seen the file before. He played the video. For a few seconds, there was only noise on the screen. Then suddenly the image cleared. It was the basement of Blackwood House. Adam's breath caught. This is impossible. Because he had never recorded this footage. The video showed a closed door. That last seal. Everything was fine for a few moments. Then, a small crack appeared on the door. Adam's blood froze. Then inside that crack, 2 red eyes slowly opened. And the video ended.